Today I am tearing out an interior wall and a staircase. I'm going to show you everything you need to know so you're not going to have the structure fall down on your head. So you want to have an open concept living space and you want to tear out some walls. And in this video, we're going to show you all the do's and don'ts for when you're tearing things apart so you understand how your house is built and how not to disrupt your mechanical, electrical, and plumbing so you don't run into any disaster. So before you start any major demolition project, you really want to ask yourself an important question. How much do you know about the way it's built? There's two things you really want to do when you get started. First, turn off the water to the house. And I know you might think that's redundant, but believe it or not, you might have water supply running to a garden hose or something in the floor, and the pipe for that supply line might be attached to something in this frame going through the floor. You just don't know. Play it safe and turn off all your electrical breakers that are attached to the area as well. That way you aren't going to run into any surprises. Of course, wearing some safety gear is probably important. There's always things flying around, so watch your eyes and your face and your hands. For me, my hands are the big thing, so I buy these really good gloves because I'm always getting myself chewed up. Now, we're going to be tearing apart this wall and the staircase that's in behind it because we want to create an open concept space. This is not a load-bearing wall. Traditionally, staircases are built so the gravity does most of the work. But the way that a house is structured is usually you have your floor joist up here that's falling in line with your staircase, and it's usually meeting up with another floor joist here. And they've got that going on, but this house is so old, they've just got it nailed in. There are no joist hangers here. They didn't have them back in the day. Just 3 really great big 6-inch spikes. And generally speaking, that's enough to carry the weight, but we are going to bring everything up to code. So I know that when I'm tearing this apart, nothing's going to be falling apart. I'm not going to destroy the home, but what I do have to be careful of is when you remove drywall, just remove the drywall. Give yourself time for a physical inspection. There were a couple of interior walls here, and there's a possibility that there may have been a split in the joist that might have been shored up as part of this interior wall. I wouldn't know that if I didn't take the time to take the ceiling down first. So when you're doing demolition, pop off your ceilings, inspect your structure, make sure everything looks normal. Then start with walls you know aren't carrying any weight, and then work your way from there. Make sure you just understand how it's built so that as you go along, you're not taking out something that's really important. Whew, that can be really dangerous. Okay, so we've got our ceiling removed. We understand our structure. We know this isn't carrying any load. So what we want to do is we want to take off the drywall first, just to make sure we're not using any cutting tools here. I'm not a big fan of using a reciprocator saw when I'm cutting blind. So I only use it if I can see what's inside the wall. So here you want to just grab your drywall. The idea here is the bigger the piece, the better. Oh, there was a joint right there on that stud. And having a big wrecking bar like this makes this so much easier because you don't have to fight too much with what's going on. Now, traditionally there's a stud every 16 inches, okay? So what I want to do is I want to just slam this through the wall. I know there's no mechanical in here. And then jiggle, all right? Here's the goal. If you jiggle the drywall, the screws that are in the surface, the head of the screw will pop through the paper and the drywall loses all of its strength. And then you can just grab it, okay? And it usually comes off in pretty good pieces. Remember, the bigger the piece you tear off, the less trips to the dump. So one of the things you're going to want to do before you take off your walls is take off all the trims. I know it might sound silly. Remember, the smartest demolition is just uninstall everything backwards. If you get rid of all the things like this, there's nothing else left holding the drywall to the wall than the screws, and everything will break off a lot easier for you. Oh, here we go. This is another layer. This wall actually was originally outside corners. There wasn't a door here originally. So somebody framed this door on here and didn't open that back up to the frame. So there's corner beads here are made of metal. All right, not every corner bead is. These ones are screwed on. around the door where I was working yesterday, they were actually spray glued on. So they came off real quick and easy. And because you don't know what you're dealing with, it's always a good idea to be wearing gloves here. Remember, this is galvanized metal, and when it cuts you, it gets you pretty infected pretty good. So be careful with it. A lot of screws. My Lord, always amazes me. People put more screws in a small space than in a big one. So I know this is a hollow wall. So one of the secrets that I have for getting rid of drywall, just punch it through from the other side. There we go. That's another joint. Just a bit of a jiggle. Amazing how many times I'll see somebody swinging their hammer around violently trying to tear out drywall. Really, at the end of the day, all you're doing is making tiny little chunks that got to be picked up and put in a bag. The other thing is, more accidents happen from guys swinging a hammer and the rubber part of the hammer comes off the handle or just slips out of their hand. So just keep yourself under control when you're working. That's how you work safe. Just a quick tip. If you're familiar and you're not used to working with a hammer, just treat it like an axe, all right? And think, if I miss, where is it gonna go, okay? So don't have your knee out there when you're swinging, hit yourself in the leg. Always try to swing between your legs, okay? Worst case scenario, if you miss everything, you're gonna miss yourself too. Now here we are, little love tap. We're just jiggling the drywall off the screws. Now, generally if you just push it up, all you're gonna have left is the tape joint. You should be able to just pry this off the ceiling from there. Wow, that's a lot of mud. You know, it was pretty normal back in the day, especially in the older homes. There used to be a different kind of culture, you know, you had your adult spaces and your kid spaces, walls and doors everywhere to kill the drafts. But look at this, all we did was take the drywall off. Look how much bigger the space is. There's nothing structural going on here. At the end of the day, this probably could have just been a half wall or a railing, but if you wanted to save some money, you could have just put a half wall in here. Would have made moving furniture and stuff up here a lot easier. So here's a classic example. If you were just swinging your hammer wildly from the other side and you hadn't taken a look to see if there's a light switch here, you could have put your hammer right through the back of this, pinched some wires and started a fire. So, you know, take your time, understand what's going on the best you can. Don't be violent. Just move at a healthy pace so you can do things safely. Here we are, we're just removing these. Very important to turn off your breakers. Listen, I mean, when you see a handyman special like this, don't assume they know how to do electrical if they don't know how to do anything else. Now this particular box is attached by nails. So what I'm doing is I'm just getting in behind the box and prying the box off the wall a little bit, creating a space, and then I can take my hammer and pull those nails out. Now I'm going to want to have some power on later, so if I can maintain the integrity of this box, then that would be fabulous. That way, in case they did some creative wiring and there's still power to this, at least you're working safe. With do-it-yourself renovations, you might think you've turned off the power, but you don't really know. So unless you're turning off the power to the whole house, just play it safe. Because, man, you never know where they're going to find a power lead somewhere in the basement and fish it all the way over to here, and it's totally unrelated to this part of the house. Oh, okay, time to rip out a wall. So we're going to rip out a stud wall now. The idea here, you want to just check for two things. A, you're up against the stairs. So generally speaking, there's going to be a few locations where they've nailed the side of the staircase into the wall. So just have a quick look. There's enough movement there. There's no nail in this particular stud. So I'll teach you how to take out a stud. This is made where there's 2 nails from the top plate and 2 nails from the bottom plate, and then they stand the wall in place. So the way to remove a stud, quick and simple, is actually take one of these bad boys from Stanley. This is my favorite wrecking bar. And this just batter up, right? Hit right down near the bottom. You don't have to be crazy with your force, just enough that you're going to be bending over the nails and knock the bottom loose. Couple of little shots like that, all right? And then you pull it towards you. You're pulling it off the ceiling now. You see the separation you have? And you give it a twist and a yank. It's that simple, always under control. Don't be wild and crazy. Again. So in a 10-foot wall, you're having 6 or 7 pieces of lumber. Feel free, because you're not taking out all the garbage right away. Usually we like to demolish a certain amount of space before we open the door and start taking out the garbage. Just knock down the nails in the meantime. Keep the environment nice and safe. That's got a couple of extra nails in it. A couple extra twists and you're good to go. So just because you see a lot of wood doesn't necessarily make it structural. I'm not sure why there's a double plate here. I think it's just the creative process that this person went through. They built the wall. Basically what you want to understand is this. The foundation of the house all the way around, that can carry all the weight of the whole house. And in most cases, depending on the width of your house, your floor joists will transfer from outside of the house to the other side of the house. All the weight that's on that second level. If the span is so long that it needs to have a supporting wall, then that supporting wall weight will be transferred as a point load down to something else that's also structural, and that's not a floor joist. It's usually a steel beam, or it's all the way down to the floor and the concrete in your basement, and they've poured a footing there. So if you look in your basement and take a look, if you have no steel and your house is only 16 feet wide, chances are they're just going straight across and nothing on the main floor is structural. If there is a structural wall, of course, all of that can be removed and re-engineered. There is no limit to how much open space you can have. It really comes down to getting a good engineer and opening up your wallet. Look at all this beautiful space. And the best part is, it is exactly 16 feet wide, this structure. And we have a 2x8 framing. It's spaced out a little bit more than I like. I think that's a 30-inch on center, which is typical for the day. You'll see that a lot, but it's a lot thicker lumber. It's an actual 2 inches wide, not 1.5 inches like our structural lumber is today. Plus all the flooring on top is tongue and groove and nailed into it. I think the best approach here when we go to reinstall is I'm going to end up putting a 2x4 strapping on that ceiling instead of this little 1x2. That way it'll just help hold everything together and transfer weight from one part of the floor to the next as people are moving around. It'll cut down on all the creaks and all the movement. Because of this whole flooring system and this decking, this is not going to be as easy to come out. Now both of these studs stop at the plate, so I'm going to just hit the top of this in that direction until it gives up the ghost. Short swing. Remember, if I miss, you got to think, what's my follow through? Just going to take a few shots, it looks like. There it goes. Mission accomplished. So now we're going to take out the stairs. Should be pretty straightforward. And I'm hoping to be able to reuse the stringers. I have the same rise and run going on where the new location is. And I don't have any problem with popping these off, reinstalling them over there, and then putting some new treads in. So let's see, looks like it's just nailed together. We'll just do that. Oh, there it is. Find the head of the screw. Ugh. Oh, that is a lot of screw. Here we go. Do not do this without eye protection. I've seen it a lot of times. These nails will come firing out real fast. All right, yeah, that's a good size nail. So now Yeah, they didn't nail the other side because they put the frame in first and then slid this wood in. Well, this is awesome because they actually made this staircase out of just regular spruce 2x6, 2x8, 2x4s tacked in the back end. That's amazing. So I'm not going to use any of this. We're actually going to go back with one solid piece of lumber. We're going to go with 2x12 to make our stairs. And then I'm going to attach some backs on it. I'm going to be carpeting the stairs because it's an old house and I like things quiet and the feeling of warm. Carpet just works really well for me. I can also cover up the side of the stringer with it. And I'll just do a waterfall carpeting technique. No nosings, nice and simple. Just make my life easy. But for now, I just gotta find all of these nails, put your weight into them. Tip, if you put your hand over the head there when you pull it out, there's nowhere there for that nail to fire off. If all you do is just go like this, sometimes it'll just kind of go fire off the side of the head. So just once you get it prying, put your hand over top of it. I know it might sound redundant, but if you can avoid learning that one the hard way. There we go. Now you're right here. Okay. Hey, look, that one was actually nailed in. It shouldn't be that easy. Sometimes you just need some therapy. You just want to hit something really hard. Oh, that feels good. Who needs a gym? There's a little piece of wood is going to give me more trouble than the whole flight of stairs, right? You know, to give you an idea how old this house is, back when they built this, they had one pair of clothes they worked in and one pair of clothes for Sunday. And they still made things really simple, eh? Now, when you're going to pull up a piece of lumber like this apart, you see a lot of guys that put the climber and they'll try to go this way, and that works. But if you're having trouble, try sticking the climb and going this way as well. Okay? There's a lot safer if you're pulling towards yourself than pushing away from yourself when you're on a ladder. Again, oh yeah, 16 feet long, 2 nails. Yeah, well, what do we got here? A little bit of patience here. You understand how things are made. Alrighty, there we go. Okay. Of course, this last one here is nailed in all kinds of directions. I'm going to get my work out here. There we go. Just get that started. Again, hold the nail. This is my stiletto tool. It's a gift from my son Matthew. He spent the summer doing framing on new house construction. It's good for him. Learn how to work like a man. And it's got a hammer, it's got magnets, it's got all kinds of different claws and jaws, so you can pry and pull nails or any situation you got to deal with. This thing is just awesome. It's solid titanium. It costs a bloody fortune, but man, is it ever handy. Everything's finally out of the way. We'll get set. Don't make me look bad. Oh. And that's why we wear hard hats. Not everything's attached. There it is. All right, so that is now no longer attached up here. Never the same day twice in my life. Every day is a new day. Well, if you're looking for a career and it's not boring, I'll tell you. This is something to consider. One, two, three, four, five. 5 nails. Well, there we go. We're pretty much done opening up the space now. I think before we go any further, we're going to take a little break and we'll clean this up. Very important, clean as you go. You don't want to let the garbage build up to the point where it just gets mentally wears you down to see so much debris in the room, right? So take time, do a little demo, do a little cleanup. At this point, it's good if you're finished for the day, go by, inspect all of your electrical, make sure that everything is looking like it wasn't damaged. Turn your circuits back on, reinstate your plumbing. It's good to do with somebody else on the other end of the phone. We have a little system in my company. We always have a kid turning the tap while he's on the phone with me. So if you have a friend who can give you a hand with that, make sure they're all safe and good to go. Other than that, if you do run into anything that's making you nervous, like the structure, yeah, it's only 3 nails on each side. I had an engineer once tell me, well, it's been here for 100 years. It'll last another 100 years. So it might look sketchy. It's definitely not up to our current standards, but I mean, if you're worried at all about it, you grab a bracket, throw a couple of structural screws into it, or cut a 2x4 and stick it under there just to create some temporary point load. If it need to do something like that to help you sleep, that's fine. But other than that, just mark any holes in the floor, make sure everything's covered up and no one's gonna have an accident if they come through and take a look. Because we all know when you're renovating in your own home, the family always comes through to take a look. So clean up, make sure all the nails are covered over or nailed down back into the floor so that your kids and pets are safe. We'll see you in the next one. So make sure to check out all the videos on our modern rustic farmhouse remodel and don't forget to subscribe.